at the beginning, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and it's easy to forget that there are costs, and we are investing. So one of the most common mistakes is probably not really keeping an eye on your costs, because, and especially on Amazon, we know how there's a lot of additional fees. So you start with your purchasing cost, but then you have to add the shipping costs. You need to add all the Amazon fees. Depending on the category, the fees changes. So it is definitely hard, especially at the beginning, to track all these expenses and all these costs. So this is another reason why it is important to have tools that help you calculate them, because there's a lot of fees. The fees might be a bit complicated. So using tools that can help you calculate these costs, these fees, it's an important way to make sure that no matter what you're doing, you might start slowly, but you are getting a profit. You are actually running a business that is not going to fail. That to me is very important, and it is easy to fail in this part.
You know, the best story I have is the first company I built that wasn't even e-commerce. It was just a healthcare company, the one that I sold a year and a half ago. And we went from 0 to 100 employees in about 4 years. And I'm a finance guy, right? So I'm supposed to be good at this stuff. And we were not good. We didn't manage cash flow well. We didn't manage our borrowing well. And we were constantly trying to scale ourselves out of trouble. And about 3 years into this living our lives by emergency business I was running, we had to take a step back and say, hold on, we need to actually have a cash plan, a profit plan, a system plan. You can't, the things that get you to $1 million in revenue won't get you to $10 million in revenue. So I think that was probably my biggest lesson was, okay, wait a minute. I was being the wrong kind of CEO for the company that was surrounding me. And, frankly, we grew a lot. It was the old adage, sales is vanity, profit is sanity. And we were living in about 2.5 years of insanity where if I was at a party, somebody asked me how much money our business brought in. It was always an impressive number. But how much of it did Tyler actually get to take home? And it was very little until we actually got intentional about building systems into our company, right? It's time to actually be an adult company. And part of that system is actually managing the finances. But for us, finance wasn't even our biggest issue. It was how do we manage overhead? How do we manage rent expense? How do we manage the personnel expenses that go along with a business all of a sudden being so big that one guy can't do it, right? That was kind of our issue. And the stories that I see with our e-commerce and Amazon sellers are exactly the same. You get to a certain point, and what you realize is, oh boy, I need to evolve as a leader or my business is not going to make it to the next level.
If you're a small seller and do not have much profit, I won't go with the high bidding keywords on PPC, or I won't do, lightning deals. I won't do, big paid campaigns because our profit margins are already very thin. So I would first work on increasing my profit margins, which could be working with the supplier, how you can bring the cost down or shrink the packaging, make the packaging look smaller so that your FBA score goes down, or ordering more and more units so that your profit does increase. So it's a little tricky for new sellers if you're low on budget. There are a lot of options, but not as much as.
Also keep an eye on your costs and your profits. For example, Amazon have some fees that they are annual fees for long storage fees. So these are other fees that you might not consider on a single listing, like once when you are selling, but then eventually this is gonna come back to you in a year. So some cases that I can remember are sellers that they maybe not forgot, but they underestimated the long storage fees. So there was a profit in a monthly site, but then when the year was over, they didn't add this additional cost and these additional fees. So that is also why it is important to not just reach to the point when the long storage fee is coming and then you haven't done anything about it. So it's always important to prevent this from happening and have everything already calculated before.
The biggest challenge is maybe not being aware of those costs. And so if you're not aware of how expensive or how long it's going to take to get the traction you want, then a lot of entrepreneurs will quit, right? You'll do it for 3 weeks and you won't maintain the level of consistency that's going to be required to actually be successful. Firing off 2 email blasts and having 2 weeks worth of Google ads is not going to do the job for you. And so being properly capitalized where, you know what, I'm going to have to make a $10,000 or $20,000 investment over the next 6 to 8 months. I'm ready to do that. It's part of my plan. I have a robust plan to go to market so that if it doesn't appear successful after 5 days, I don't quit. I think that's the biggest mistake, is failing to count the cost on the front end and therefore not being committed enough, not committing enough resources to actually being successful.